Today, we're going to talk about what might be one of the most frustrating things that happens to people in corporate professional roles. And that is watching others get picked for roles while you're still using the old school method of watching the job board, setting alerts, and applying for things as they become available. Meanwhile, people are getting slotted into roles over here, and you're trying to figure out, how do you get that? How do you get that? So I've been trying to put my finger on it so that I can explain to people how to become that person who gets tapped on the shoulder. And here's the best synopsis that I can come up with. I think this is the thing that makes certain people in corporate highly desirable to have on teams. And that is someone with a total P&L mindset. Okay? Don't worry, I am not saying you have to be a finance bro. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you need to have a general understanding of the P&L for your company and how it impacts, how it is impacted by decisions. So I'm going to go through three things related to having this total P&L mindset. Number one, these people understand that every single business decision has an impact to the company's P&L. It is either a top line impact, somehow impacting revenue, or it impacts the bottom line. But it has an impact. Every single business decision. Because if you think about it, there's no decision. It's not a business decision if it doesn't require some amount of spending or some amount of resources to be applied, which in other words is spending. And it's up to you to figure out, well, what is the return on that spend? What is the benefit that will come from that spend? Where will that manifest itself in the P&L? Will that drive more sales? Will that drive more efficiency in our marketing spend? Will that just be a flat out savings? Will that drive, I don't know, inefficiencies in our manufacturing plants? Or will it drive just general SG&A cost savings? Will it result in less process waste, which means people can get their jobs done faster, which means ultimately you could do the job with fewer people, which means savings to the bottom line? You have to process every single business decision and what that means to the P&L. And if anybody is super frustrated, just like so mad that they can't get their project through and they don't understand why it won't get approved, and they've answered all the questions and checked all the boxes, but no one will approve it, that's a sign. When I hear that and see that, it's actually a sign of business immaturity. Immaturity. Because they don't understand. What is it that you don't understand about the people making these decisions? You clearly don't understand how your project doesn't fit with the financial goals of the company. And if you can't get to the bottom of that, or if you've gotten to the bottom of that, but you still don't understand why they won't just approve your project, no thanks. That's not showing the type of understanding that people want on their teams. So that's number one. Number two that makes people highly desirable to get onto teams, to get that tap on the shoulder, that phone call, is that they drive for the best decision for the total company P&L, not the department goals, not some siloed metrics that somebody built with just their own performance in mind that has nothing to do with the um, best outcome for the company. So I find it very impressive when I see someone in a meeting break those silos down, put those metrics aside, and talk about what is the right thing for the company, what is in the best interest of the company. On the other side of the coin, when you see somebody arguing, if I ever see anyone argue about who gets credit for either the increase in sales or the savings or the efficiency or whatever it is, who gets credit? It's one thing to talk about that behind the scenes, but to hold up a project or waste a room full of people's time talking about who gets credit for something that is going in the right direction. Leaders just have no time for that. That is not the type of player they want on their team. We want to set credit aside and just make sure that the right thing happens. That the right thing happens, and that at the end of the day, the decision was made that drove these favorable metrics on the P&L. Okay, so that was number 2. Number 3 is simply understanding that anything that the company could spend resources on that will drive the top line of the P&L is exponentially more valuable to the company than something they would spend those same resources on that would only drive savings to the bottom line with no impact to the top line. There is this magical financial trickle down effect that is just beautiful when you increase revenue. And if people don't understand that, then that shows a sign of lack of knowledge, lack of awareness, and inability to prioritize the right things. So, really, just understanding those mechanics that whatever you're working on or whatever business decision is being made or being pushed, that if it's driving some impact to the top line, or even a future impact to the top line, right? It might not be today, but it might be, hey, we're going to build this AI model that is going to enable our salespeople to XYZ, triple sales in the future. That'd be great. That's going to have a better business outcome to the P&L than something that is, hey, I want to spend this money to drive this efficiency that will save me 3 people at the end of the day. That's great too. But if these things are in competition with each other, the one that drives top line is always going to win. It's always going to win. Okay, so I'm going to give you one more. And this is a super bonus. This is a super bonus category. And this is the people who understand the actual strategic plan of their company, right? It exists for all big companies and medium-sized companies, and maybe even small companies do this if they're doing things really well and they're pretty mature. They're building their 3-year or 5-year strategic plan. Okay, over here you have the annual operating plan, the AOP. That is the year you're in. That is how things are going for that year. But bigger picture, there is a 3 to 5-year plan that exists. And the company always shares that in the town hall meetings. And sometimes we zone out because we're like, okay, I don't really get it. What are they talking about? Those are the things that you need to be paying attention to because understanding the mechanics of the 3-year plan. When they say we want to grow revenue by, 9 to 11%, and we want to grow, whether they say gross margin or they say operating income or they say net income, whatever that bottom line-ish number is that they're talking about growing or maybe not growing, depending on what's happening macroeconomically in the world, right? It might be like, we're going to grow top line 9 to 11% and we're going to hold the bottom line flat. Okay. That means the work that you and your teammates are all doing needs to have that in mind. You need to have that in mind. And so here's the super, super bonus performer part is a person who can call back to that, right? In the heat of the moment, when decisions are being made about where we spend our time, our energy, our resources, what projects they're pushing forward, when they can recall that strat plan, that strategic plan, that longer term plan, and say, this is important that we do this because it sets us up for success and it fill in the blank, toward that strategic plan. Whereas if something is in conflict with that, like maybe it's great for this year's plan, but it's totally in conflict for setting us up for success in the next 3 years, it just shows a lack of strategic awareness and visibility. So, those are some of the things. That's how I would describe and put some color around the person in corporate who has a really good, solid understanding of the overall P&L. Notice I said nothing about what the line items of the P&L are, or didn't get into a ton of financial detail, but just that understanding of what drives what, how these things, how the top line and the bottom line are related, how decisions manifest themselves differently depending on where they hit the P&L, right? All of these things are important for people to understand. And if you can start building that knowledge and expertise, and start leveraging it in your day-to-day interactions, it's going to serve you really well, and you will become that sought after employee.